Hello, hello. Happy Saturday. Okay. I know there's a lag. If you are on with me, I'm going to stay on the Zoom screen because it's like not matching on Facebook and Zoom. This should also give you some hope if you are a budding entrepreneur. I have been an entrepreneur for the past 15 years, and there's always like little techie things that just throw you off. So it used to be that it was like very easy to stream Zoom into a Facebook group. And when I did that setting up this group, they were like, oh yeah, that's not a feature anymore. And I was like, what? So I'm quite proud of myself that I found how to like put in the streaming key. I don't know. It felt much more techy than I'm currently qualified for. So the reason being is I really wanted to share my slides with you today because I have like a whole beefy, juicy presentation that I want you to get out, like get as much out of as you can. And I have a slide deck. So I'm going to be just watching the Zoom screen, and then I can always check back comments at the end. Okay, I think and obviously, if anything is not up and running, just let me know. Hi, happy Saturday. Okay, we made it. We're on day 3. Holy smokes. And I've never had this group follow into the weekend, but I wanted to make sure that everybody was set up like coming into January 2nd and so on. And it's kind of nice. Like it's nice to just cozy up with you guys on a Saturday morning here on the West Coast and get into it. So yesterday, we'll kind of do a quick recap and then we're going to dive in because I have a lot to chat about today. So for lay of the land, day 1, we did the evaluation of where you are now, both in business and in life. And then I also want to speak to this because a couple of the gals were like, wait a minute, I'm just starting my business. I didn't really have anything to fill in for the business audit. And what I would say is that's totally fine. If anything, not that it's like better by any means, there's no better or worse, but it's kind of exciting because you have a clean slate. You have a clean slate to like forecast. You're not like, oh man, I've made some trial and error along the way that now I've got to like clean up, or I'm a little bit more jaded in this area and I've got to break through some limiting beliefs in that area. There is nothing more exciting. Well, actually, there's probably a lot of things that are more exciting, but that initial stage when you're starting your business is so fun. It's so fun. It's kind of like when you first start dating your person, like you're never going to get this time back. And I remember like a coach saying to me, like, really just enjoy it. Like these are the first times I remember running. I didn't have an office when I first started this portion, like I'm saying, like present day, the business that you see me in right now, this coaching business that I started in January 2023. We were living in an itty bitty 1-bedroom beach cottage in San Diego with a set of twins and an at-home nanny. So it wasn't like I had the quiet space to like do something like this or to have clients. I know a lot of you in here that are watching are in the coaching industry, and it's like we have to have privacy, and so they used to have free rooms that you could rent from the library, only 2 hours at a time. So I could only take 2 clients back to back. And that's where I started my business. And it was just like I look back on those as the glory days, and now we're here. So all of that to say, if you are in that fresh jumping off spot, you're in the right spot. So the cool thing is you can either leave it blank, and we'll get into it as I like talk about like what's next, or you could just kind of forecast, like throw some ideas in there of like what you would like to see take place. It's also to help get you thinking like, oh, I didn't know I should have an email marketing plan, or oh, maybe I should go to a networking event. So, and it just gets your like wheels turning that way and gives you some ideas. All right, so that was day 1 was the assessment. Day 2, hopefully you did the vision meditation, wrote out like the big juicy vision for your life, and then reverse engineered those top 3. Thank you guys for sharing your top 3. So good. So with that, before we dive into today, I'm going to quickly do our prize wheel. Yesterday, the 2 winners were Shayna and Lori. Get me your email so I can send you the Starbucks gift card. We'll do another 2 today. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. The first one is, oh my gosh, it's right on the line. No, it's not. Okay. The first one is Siobhan, based out of Arizona, who is a all things like fitness guru. So connect with her if that's your jam. Okay. And then let's do it one more time. This is so fun. It feels like being Vanna White. The second one is Kimberly Jane. Kimberly is currently in the mastermind, which I'll tell you guys about as we get towards the end. and is an incredible life coach. She also serves parents that are going through like any kind of struggles with school age children. So connect with her. She obviously sees people virtually. Obviously, I know we're all like kind of across the board here. Okay, so today, day 3. So day 1 and 2, not to like say today is the best day, but at some point you've probably been exposed to day 1 and 2, like vision workshops, craft your goals for the year. And how often do we do that? And then kind of like the cliche gym membership, how many people, like how empty are the gyms come March? How stalled out is your business come March? Or like, it's not really, I know I said I was going to start this thing, but however it just turns out is how it turns out. So, what I'd love to chat about today is how we actually have follow through, how we have lasting change and transformation, and how to stop self sabotage, because that's ultimately what gets in the way. All of you on here, like I've read your stories, I've gotten to know you over the past couple of days, are so wildly capable and remarkable. And each of you have gifts that need to be shared into the world. And the only thing that gets in our way is ourselves. So I'm going to, for today's purposes, I'm going to do a training all around that. And then if you feel complete at that point, you're welcome to hop off. If the past 3 days have felt like you've gotten some value, I'd love to invite you to stay on until the end. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what the next steps are. Or like you've heard me kind of talk about this mastermind a little bit. Some of the gals are in here from the mastermind. So what does that look like? And I'll do all of that at the end. All right. Dun, dun, dun. Before I share my screen, I'm just going to pop over to the Facebook page and make sure. I think we're like all good. Okay. I think all the tech stuff is good. All right. Share screen. I think I need to pull up the other tab first. Canva. Share. There we go. And then let's move me. 5 keys of transformation. A lot of the concepts. So I told you, I've been like piecing together different concepts from different people. Today, a lot of the work is good old fashioned Tony Robbins. I mean, Lord knows he's stood the test of time for a reason. So it's kind of my spin on some of his work. All right, 5 keys of transformation. So number 1 is the reason we do anything in life and in business for that matter are all because of patterns. So it's so easy to just say like, oh, that's just my personality, or that's just the way I am. And this applies to either starting a business or being in business, because you're like, well, of course I'm not seeing success because this is just the way I am, or I'm just somebody who's always bad at money, or I'm the person that can never lose the weight. So we often think that it's just the way that we are, but in reality, patterns are the number one thing that run our life, our day-to-day, who we become, our actions, our thoughts, our actions, and so on. And what I would offer here is that the reason they run our life is because they are rehearsed. So one moment, I'm having a tech issue here. One sec. Okay, so weird. It like cut out for a second. Okay, we're back in the mix. Um, share, perfect. Thank you. All right, and so what I would offer is the reason that they are the operating system, why they're running our life, is because they're rehearsed. It's just the things that we do the most. And so kind of on a broader spectrum, what I could offer is, now I know that there are absolute things like trauma and things that happen that cause very acute things like anxiety and depression. But if you're just experiencing, and I'm going to be kind of bold here, because obviously I'm not a psychotherapist or anything of that nature, but if you are just someone who experiences kind of like underlying consistent depression, apathy, this is like, they call it the Eeyores and the Tiggers. If you experience, we either kind of go to one side or the other. So for me, I don't really actually experience anxiety at all, but if I'm in like that low level way of doing life, I get into apathy, which some would call like depression or gray or absent. And what I can say is it's ultimately because I have rehearsed the things that have gotten me there. So speaking of Tony Robbins, I always love that he gives this example about our physiology, about our bodies. So often it's just the 2 millimeter difference. So for example, and I know I'm on like a little square up here, but if you think about your sternum and you think about somebody who experiences depression, like that, like just sadness, that weight, it ultimately is going to pull our posture forward, correct? Like it's just like, you're not going to be like, oh, if you're depressed, like it just doesn't work that way. So if you are sunken in your physiology, if you can just simply lift your sternum 2 millimeters, it changes everything. It changes your eyesight, it changes your breath pattern, it gives you a little more capacity to get your blood circulating. And if you do that over time, like maybe for 10 less seconds a day, you experience 10 less seconds of depression. Or, all of a sudden you are starting to like open up your heart space and your posture for a little bit longer. And it's now looking like, okay, I can like do this for a couple hours a day. Now maybe and it starts to build and build and build until ultimately that becomes your identity, which is what we're really talking about today. So as we go through these slides, if you can either like take screenshots or you can write down the prompts, because there will be some prompts scattered throughout, because everything in life that we ask that we can question is how we will get answers quicker. So today's prompt around the pattern concept is, what patterns have interrupted your success before? So, we're talking about self-sabotage, right? So is it something where like you get this close to the finish line and then you do something right at the end to undermine yourself? So it's like you said you were going to do X, Y, and Z, and at the last minute you got like sucked into an 8-part miniseries on Netflix. And I say this like as someone who has done that, as someone who has done that. Is it someone where you really have really big business goals, but you're like, but my friends need me, which means I need to be going out with them 4 nights a week? Like, that's not the case. I was at an incredible talk with Liz Gilbert, who's one of my favorites. She wrote the book Big Magic, huge plug for that. If you are creative, all creatives and all entrepreneurs should read the book Big Magic. And she talked about writing her first book, and she was living in New York City and, a young writer and having all the fun. And all of her friends were going out to Fire Island for the summer, which is like, like the fun party island. And her mentor was like, yeah, you're not going to that. And she was like, what? And she was like, you need to write your book. You're not going to that. So like, what are the things that we do that undermine our success? And obviously there's a time and a place for all things. All right. So how do we fix our patterns? Like now, like step one is awareness. So that's why we did that prompt first. So we're like, oh, okay, I know that weight loss is the common example here. Like the pattern is, if I bring Oreos into the house, I'm going to eat them, and in one sitting for that matter. So maybe step one is the awareness of, okay, if I bring Oreos in, I eat them. Do I really want the Oreos? So we want to question. Second two is, do we want to question? And of course, your brain is going to be like, heck yeah, I want the Oreos. They are delicious. But if we really, that's why it says question and investigate, you want to ask yourself, but wait, do I really want the sleeve of Oreos? And then you start to think about it and you go, well, the last time I did that, I had a massive stomach ache. I had all kinds of gas and bloating. I woke up the next day in this brain fog headache from all the like processed sugar and everything that happened. And I wasn't really on my A game. So like, do I actually want to feel like that? Probably not. And then you get to rewrite the truth. So this is a simple process. You can write down awareness, question, and then you write out what is an opposing truth to that. So the truth could be, I am the kind of person that, so we're going to use a lot of identity statements today. I am the kind of person that doesn't even need to buy Oreos. If I don't bring them home, I don't even think about it, like out of sight, out of mind. So you are going to declare that, and then you practice repeating it. We want to practice the new pattern. So now, like every time you go to the grocery store and you don't buy the Oreos, you're like, heck yeah, I'm putting a little penny in the piggy bank towards that good patterning. So that's how you fix the patterns. Okay, step two of transformation is all about our decisions. And this, I feel like, is my superpower. There's a lot of things in business that I've had to work really hard at that have not come naturally to me, that have been incredibly out of my comfort zone. But this one, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was how I was raised or my genetics, but this I feel really strongly about. We have to make decisions quicker. There's also a few people that are tuning into this that are life coaches. I would argue that our entire job is to help our clients make decisions faster. Because there is so much data that proves that people who are the most successful in life, in any genre, not just like business and money, are those who are the quickest to decide. I know it sounds irresponsible, and I'll tell you why it's not in a second. And then conversely, the other part of that sentence is that people who are unsuccessful often take a very long time to decide, and they often waver and change their mind frequently. So it's the reason that's not irresponsible, just like make a decision, make a decision, make a decision, is that decisions in themselves are not hard. It's the dance that's hard. The dance is that space that is in between where you are now, your current reality, and your desired point B. And in between there is the dance. So the whole point of decisions is if you are here and you want to be here, the quicker you decide, the quicker you shorten that space. It doesn't mean all your decisions are going to be right or that you're going to like knock it out of the park. It just means that, oh, it's data. Like that worked. I'm going to keep going and it's going to get me closer to my goal. Or, oh, wow, that did not work at all. So now I know I can move on to a different pivot and a different strategy. But if you're not trying anything, it is making you absolutely mental. I see this. I mean, this is like what I coach clients on all day, every day. I see it make people mental. All right. So the prompt here is when you are stuck, like, oh, I don't know if I should make a decision on this, or like, what should I do? This often shows up in the verbiage of, let me just think about it. Let me just think about it. So what I can share with you is the way our human brain is programmed and designed, it's very outdated software. If we think back to like the caveman days, it's still that same software. So the way it is designed is always to keep you safe. And your brain doesn't know the difference between a saber-toothed tiger or you starting a business. It just doesn't. So anything, whether it is reaching out to that first client, investing in a mentor, posting your first post on social media, like all of that stuff feels like code red a lot of times. So when you're in that stuck space, the longer you give I'm going to think about it, the more likely your brain will talk you out of whatever the decision is, because it's not coming from an actual grounded spot. So the prompt here is when you're stuck, you're going to use the languaging, the identity language of, I am the kind of person who, or I am the kind of person that. So for example, I am the kind of person that follows through on my business metrics for the day, like whatever my checkpoints are for the day. I am the kind of person that is resourceful enough that if this doesn't work out, there's 5 other opportunities that are waiting anyway. So keeping that in mind as you go through decisions. Okay, so this is what we've really been building up to. And this is what I would offer, is because this is why, people have yo-yo diets. This is why you rinse and repeat the same exact toxic boyfriend with a different face and a different outfit. It all comes back to our identity work. So our whole human situation is that we strive to be congruent with our identities. It's like we want to stay in that lane. And we can either have a limited model of our identity or an empowered model of our identity. And that's what we'll expand into. So this is why affirmations don't work. And I kind of touched on this a little bit on day 1 or 2, where, if you are saying I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm going to be a millionaire, my business is going to do 7 figures this year, and you've never made your first dollar in your business, your brain's like, what are you talking about? That's what? So it needs to be congruent. It needs to be on board with you actually believing it. So a workaround to that, if you're like, but wait, I do want to be a business millionaire. The workaround is the affirmation. I can give you 2 examples of affirmations. One is, I'm willing to believe that I can grow a 7-figure business, or it's possible that I can build a 7-figure business. Because then your brain's like, all right, I can take that bridge over there. Or I am on my first dollar today expands into my second dollar tomorrow and multiplies and multiplies and multiplies. So your biggest clues as to your identity in shifts, one way or the other, are envy and curiosity. And I would even argue that envy is a little bit more powerful. So this is what I was speaking to in terms of the Like, I'm not envious of a heart surgeon. I have admiration for a heart surgeon, but I'm not envious because that's not who I'm supposed to be. Now, if I saw someone in the coaching space that was like making a huge impact, that had a great quality of life, family life, travel life, one of my big values is I want to give, like, I want to be obscenely generous. Like, if I saw that taking place in my industry and like a mentor of mine, then I'd probably be envious because that's part of the identity I'm striving for. So this goes back to train your brain to find similarities in the people that you are trying to emulate so that it doesn't put you in that whole like division, me, them situation. Like, you want to see it as a congruent, I can adapt those parts of the identity that I want to, and not feel like there's a dividing line between us. Okay. So let's figure out how we debunk our limited operating system, which, if you've never done any kind of like self-awareness or personal growth, I mean, literally, we all start here. We all have limiting operating systems. And on any given day, mine can like rear its ugly head. So the way that we like debunk it is you are going to write out all of the adjectives as to why you have not succeeded up until this point. And if you're like, well, wait, I'm just starting a new business, I would say write down all the adjectives that you assume are going to get in your way, that you've already predetermined. Like, oh, I live in a small town, there's not enough people, I can't charge what that person's charging, I'm not farther along. Write out all the beliefs you have about yourself as to why you're not where you want to be. I'm not smart enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm not making enough money in my business for people to take me seriously. I'm making too much money now that I'm not relatable. Like, there's just like all of the things, right? So, right, you're going to do this in order because you want to start with all the gunk. Like we talk about, there's an exercise I lead my clients through called brain flossing. And you've got to clear out the gunk before you can do any kind of rewiring. So then once you do that, then we've got to start climbing the emotional scale so that your brain gets on board with like wanting to change. So you're going to write out any moments in your life that are the most impactful, where you felt the most successful, where you felt the most amount of love, the most amount of fun, sexy, that give you the most amount of gratitude, because you want it to build in the other direction so that you are increasing that emotional scale. Now, write out all the adjectives of how your most empowered self would be. So if you can write out all those memories, you're like, well, wait a minute, I am pretty much a badass. I am radiant. I am creative. I am resourceful. I am kind. I am fair. I am open to change. I am connected to God, like all of these different things that you're like, whoosh, like that's the armor I want to suit up in for my business, for my life, to just show up in that manner. And if you can embody that person, then you get to write down, well, if I'm that person, what results could I actually accomplish? Like, if I'm that person, I could be like a bestseller. I could be touring on stages, speaking everywhere. I could be whatever it may be. Like, so one of my, this is not related to business, but one of mine is I ultimately one day want to bring an art installation to Burning Man. And I mean, I should say I'm not an artist. Like, I do art installations here and there, but I don't claim the identity of an artist because I'm a coach, I'm a businesswoman here. But the more I tell myself that, the least likely that thing is to come into fruition. So keep in mind that like whatever comes up, comes up. Okay, we're getting there, you guys. Number 5, empowered operating system. So we are upgrading your identity, the 2.0 version of you. That's a whole, this is how you stick around. This is how you adopt this like new role as I am a freaking badass baller in my business that is going to like follow through on the goals that I'm setting out at the top of 2025. So you're going to write down what type of qualities does that person have? The person that hits the revenue goal of XYZ or so on. What does their day look like? What routines do they have? I love that April talked about as one of her big goals of doing AM, PM goals, like morning and evening routine goals. That's a big deal. Like, that's exactly what we're talking about today. The patterns, what are your routines? And then who do they spend time with? The big one. That's a really, really big one. Okay, part 2 of the training, because I didn't want to like, I wanted to give you guys as much as I could, is how to, now that we've like transformed our identity into the person that would actually crush the business, raise our prices, make more money, make more impact, yada, yada, yada. How do we have lasting power? How do we have lasting change and staying power where we don't want to quit or peter out at a certain point? And the answer to that is three parts. So there's three pieces to this. One is conditioning slash programming. So what that means is going back to those small, like morning routines, evening routines, it's small repeatable tasks that get executed over time. So this is where you want to follow a very specific protocol. So it's not just like, we'll use weight loss as an example. So the goal is I want to lose 10 pounds. Now, if you just kind of like throw spaghetti at the wall and you're like, I heard that like there's a new fitness offering that's coming down the pipeline. Maybe I should take a class here and there. Maybe I've heard that keto's good. Maybe I should try that. Like if you're not actually committed to something, it's not really going to work. But if you're like, okay, I signed up with the personal trainer, or I am going to commit to eating 3 servings of vegetables a day. Like that is the how. You've got to find the actual program. The reason I honestly think that Beachbody, which is my past, worked as well as it did for as long as it did and had success is because they gave you a calendar for your fitness. They literally said on day one, whatever the program was that you were doing at the time, and I know there's other companies that offer the same type of programming, is, day one, you're going to do arm day. Day 2, you're going to do yoga. Day 3, you're going to do cardio. And like, do you know how much that makes a difference? It's one less decision you have to make. So I am a big advocate for our health and fitness and nutrition people in this group because I think people need us and need you. All right. Number 2 is immersion. So people who have gone before you. A good example of this would be foreign language. How cliche is it that how many of us like learn Spanish or French growing up in school and can like literally speak a lick of it? But so like 18 years worth, or I don't know, 10 years worth of traditional schooling where it's just kind of scattered in versus you getting plopped into Spain for 2 to 4 weeks. I bet you'd pick it up pretty quickly. So that's immersion training. Another thing I like to speak on in regards to like the kind of work that we are doing, like you and I, is I find it's really tempting in the personal and professional growth space to learn from a lot of people. And I'm guilty of this. It's like, oh, well, I want to learn from Gabby Bernstein about manifestation. And I want to learn from, I don't know who's more right-brained, like a sales coach for like business metrics on this. And like, I just want to only like kind of smather around. And then I heard this podcast by this other person who was really inspiring. And while that's all like lovely, most experts out there got to be experts because their methodology works. Like what they're doing in their own right is pretty valid. The problem is when we hop from one to the next, like nothing really works. So I'd almost rather you like go all, if you're just going to like do the podcast thing, like go all in on one person's podcast and binge the entire thing. Like get to know what their method is, what their systems are, how they got to where they are. Like go all in on that one person for, I don't know, at least 6 to 12 months, like a minimum, versus the hopping around. Same thing with like, investing obviously like in a course or program. Like for me, I always say to my clients, whether we work together one-on-one or in a group setting, like the minimum amount of time that I'm willing to work with someone is 6 months, because you got to take a minute to change. And that way that like you have the support in place to follow throughout those 6 months and to actually see the growth that you're looking for, not just like throw spaghetti at the wall. So the prompt for this one is, what genre or goal do you want to get better at? And who can you look to in that area of expertise? Like you'd obviously hire a piano teacher or binge like one person's YouTube piano like channel if you were trying to learn that way. And then 3 is, this is everything, you guys. It's so wild how like I've just noticed how this has affected my life in different seasons. Repetition in proximity. Community is everything. You are the sum of the 5 people you spend time with. I just talked to my brother about this yesterday because I was like, I really want us to raise our kids alongside each other because I just love how he and his wife do life. Like I love how they do life. And I would love for that impression to be upon my children and conversely, like when they have children. So the like actual tangible examples that I can give you here as to why this is important is I'll give you my example of when I was in the network marketing company. If I had not been on a top performing team where they were like infusing all of that belief into me to keep going, I would have like been done after a month or two. It was so blaringly obvious. The other thing that's really interesting is, I don't know if you guys know this stat about our moods. So obviously, like I said, there's big things of like anxiety and depression and trauma that you would want to work through with a specialist or a therapist. But in terms of our day-to-day mood, if you're like, I'm in a bad mood today, mood is actually determined by the past 72 hours. And it is made up by what we have eaten or consumed, for that matter, what we have or haven't eaten, how much we have slept, and who we have been around. Isn't that wild? Like if you are in a good mood or a bad mood, it directly correlates to those three things. So the big question I remember, like when I went to my very first Tony Robbins seminar, 15 years ago, and I was like, what is this? And none of my friends were speaking this language, none of my family. In fact, I remember like coming back to my cousin's house after the seminar, and she was like, this is a lot, and it seems culty and it seems weird. And like she was very poo-pooing it. And so what I can offer is, if you don't have access to people that are speaking the same language, then you start with Oprah. I mean, I think all things lead to the roads of Oprah, but no, I mean, in the regards of pick your gurus, if you will, your mentors, the people that you respect, that you admire, and read their books, listen to their podcasts. There's so much great information, like be in community with them that way until, if you do that long enough, or you get plugged into like, say, groups like mine with a mastermind, like if you do that long enough, you will attract your people from all different corners of the world. Okay, so at this point, that is the end of the training. So we talked about how to create your new identity and then how to get it to stick, right? So if there's any questions on that, please drop them in the chat. I'm more than happy to answer. And then at this point, if you're still on, I'd love to talk to you really about the staying power. Like, so many of you are starting businesses, so many of you want to grow your businesses this year. And this is really where I feel like I created the perfect solution, if I must say so myself. But in reality, like, this slide is true. You have limitless potential waiting to be unlocked. If you're tired of playing small, if you're craving more freedom as defined by you, if you're ready for more wealth, confidence, and success, then the invitation that I have for you is my mastermind. Some of you are brand new to my world, and some of you have been here for a while. So I'll walk you through it. It's called the Abundant Artist Mastermind. Now, if you're like, well, wait, I'm not an artist, or I'm a life coach, or I'm a realtor, like I use the word artist as a means to someone who is creative. And I think if you are starting or running your own business, that requires a whole other level of creativity. So this is industry agnostic. I would say it's mostly made up of coaches, consultants, people in all kinds of different fields. Whether you have I mean, there's a girl right now in my group that is selling aerial Pilates equipment, which is kind of fun. So there's all different spaces, and you are very much welcome here. Before your eye darts down to that, oh my God, it's $7,000. Of course, it's not $7,000 for you today. The other thing is, of course, I want to incentivize, like, you've been a part of my world for the past 3 days. You've entrusted me to share some knowledge, and hopefully you've gotten out of it. And I really want to incentivize the people to join that would obviously get a discounted price. So what is included in this mastermind? This is, if I could have like had the brainchild of all the different trainings when I first started my business. So if you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm not in business yet, should I even be like spending money on something like this? Yes, 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 yes. If anything, like, I think those first 5 years of your business are the most crucial time for coaching. There's a stat that says, like, in terms of how you should invest in your business, the first 5 years, coaching, because you've got to work through a lot of brain stuff that's going to stop you dead in your tracks over and over again. And then it's like from 5 to 10 years, you need more mentorship, where someone can be like, okay, these are the systems that I put in place. I need you to just copy paste them, and I can lead you through that mentorship wise. So you are in the perfect space to be having this conversation. We meet every single week in a group setting where it is group coaching. There are some weeks we do marketing and productivity. There's some weeks where I bring on a guest speaker, and we meet for 90 minutes once a week. you also, so that's the group coaching setting. And what's great is you get to collaborate with the other women. I mean, there's been a lot of business exchange just within our group. Like there's a web designer that's done a lot of the girls' websites. So just know that it's a great space to collaborate and a great space to not feel alone in the entrepreneurial world, which is huge. We just talked about community. The other piece of this is I believe in the one-on-one time, like I love a group coaching container at this point, but I also want like a one-on-one session. So this includes a monthly one-on-one deep dive where you and I get on Zoom for an hour and we do a couple things. Depends on what you need for that month. We either make a whole strategy for your business that month, and or we break through some of that deep subconscious work that's more somatic and more embedded into you as to why, we might need to move the needle forward and what's getting you like locked up in this one little area. I often bring on guest speakers. You get access to my entire database, two databases for that matter. This slide is not very accurate. Two databases. One is my previous personal development mastermind. So you get resources on money and love and sex and food and mindset work. And all like there's some guided hypnosis in there, which is really powerful for reprogramming your brain. And then our actual group, where I feel really excited that we have so many coaches that are watching this, how to sell coaching, how to sell it, how to overcome objections, how to sell really anything in that space, and all the mindset work that goes along with that. So there's plenty of trainings there. We have a WhatsApp community that I check in 6 months. And then I like to say results guaranteed, which is pretty bold in this industry because nobody really does that. And the reason I say results guaranteed, what that means is that if you show up and you do all the things, and at the end of these 6 months, you're like, I don't feel like I made my investment back. I don't feel like this was like worth what it was worth. I'll give you your money back, no question asked. Because what that does when I say results guaranteed, and you know that, it calls us both to a higher standard. It makes us both show up. And I am in the business of getting you results. I'm not in the business of just selling coaching. Like that does nothing for me. It does nothing for like my testimonials, if you will, right? So that is what you're looking at. And instead of the 7,000, obviously it's going to be marked down for us today. So what this looks like is what am I actually getting in the 6 months of coaching? So I like to say that your revenue trajectory, you can expect to increase anywhere from 5 to 10K plus is usually the sweet spot. Averaging 2 new clients a month. You will get an individualized marketing plan that includes social media mastery without being a slave to the online game. You know what, you guys? I've been on my stories during this time, but I have not done a hard post in a long time. So we'll talk about like what makes sense for you in your business. Emotional mastery, because that's what takes us out of the game of the entrepreneurial roller coaster, how to feel your feelings and not lose track of days, weeks, and months, right? Like there's some people that avoid it altogether, and there's some people that feel like it's like a tidal wave. A healthy relationship with food and fitness as it relates to your goals, because I think we as entrepreneurs, like our physiology is everything. We are the asset. Heal and amplify money mindset, know how to manage your finances and turn up the dial accordingly. And then bring manifestation into our reality. I love speaking that language, how to make things like woo-woo a repeatable and predictable process. Okay, here's some testimonials before we get into it. These are some girls from the group, signed a new client for a branding project, set up a funnel for future launches, which made my life so easier, signed a high ticket client on the last workday of March, go Dawn. Got one person committed for the beta launch of my marketing boot camp. Sold a $3,000 package today at a coffee meeting, having more regular conversations about my business and truly believing in myself. One more just for prosperity's sake. Alex says, I want to share that my calls went amazing, absolutely freaking amazing. I was so pumped using the outline from our sales format call. It's so transformative. Also, I landed another client. So awesome. She's a fun one. She's been in there for the past year. Okay, so how do I know if I'm a good fit, right? Like I already said, it's industry agnostic. So how do I know if I'm a good fit? You are somebody that considers yourself self-led. I'm gonna coach you. I'm going to coach you every step of the way, but ultimately I can't do the work for you because that's where the magic happens, right? Like that's where we get to have like our proud before and after story of when we started our business to where we are now. You're confident that you will be successful with or without me. That's kind of like controversial, right? Like I don't like this rhetoric from the coaching industry that's like, well, you'll never make it without me. Of course you will. But if you hire me, you will get there faster and it will be easier. That's the whole reason you would do that. Um, you don't subscribe to magic pills or quick fixes. If this program is right for you, you will feel an intuitive ping and believe that you have limitless expansion inside of you. And then ultimately, we do life together for 6 months. So I ask that you come with an open heart, a sense of humor, just like a willingness to play. Like that's the other thing that I want to rewrite in this industry is that it doesn't have to be so heavy and so serious. Like we can have a beautiful quality of life and grow and do all of that without it being so heavy. So, how does it work? This kicks off this Wednesday, January the 8th is our first group call. So I will post the link when we get off today. And the first 4 spots, so obviously you guys are on live now, and then I'm going to send the replay out to the email list as well. The first 4 people to commit can lock in that price of 4,000. And if this is still something that you are like, I kind of just like want to wrap my head around a little bit more, can we chat a little bit more about it? Not a problem. I will also post my Calendly link and you can pop yourself in and I'm happy to like just go over any like personalized questions that you may have. You can also obviously like DM me on Instagram or Facebook Messenger like we've been chatting anyway. So that's all an option. The other thing I like to offer here is there is a payment plan. So if you're someone that's like, oh my God, I'm just starting my business and I have zero like cash flow and operating and I'm so scared to invest, like I'm not, I take that seriously. The other 2 options for the payment plan that you'll see on the checkout page are 2,000 initially, and then you will be charged 2,000 halfway through the program. So there's no additional fees or charges for that. And then finally, there is a monthly option that you can choose as well. And that one is $695 monthly. So you can do whatever makes the most sense for your finances. I do not take it lightly. Like I'm not just like, I know everyone's got money thrown around. But what I can offer you here is I am somebody that walks the walk in this arena. I have always invested my edge and it has always paid off in one sense or the other. I can remember signing up. I owned my studio, my Pilates and nutrition studio and bar studio in Charleston. And I signed up for Tony Robbins Business Mastery, which is a week-long event in Las Vegas. It cost me $8,000 because I was like 26 years old. I had no business spending $8,000 on a week-long Tony Robbins event. And then before that event took place, I sold my business because we moved to San Diego. So now I was attending a week-long $8,000 business event in Las Vegas with no business. And I am so happy that I did it. There have been so many interesting butterfly effect things that have come out of that event. It's how I wrote my book. It's how I've gotten clients from it. Like it's just wild the little things that have happened just from saying yes and making that decision. So know that I'm not asking you to do anything I haven't stepped into myself and have seen positive benefits. Okay, I think that's the end of the slides. Let me stop my share. How are we doing on time? 45 minutes. Okay. All right. This has been a beautiful past 3 days. Thank you for spending your time and space with me. And I am really excited. I'm looking forward to seeing who's going to join our crew this next coming season. You're absolutely in the right space at the right time. That's all I can offer there. I always believe we are exactly where we are supposed to be. So have a beautiful weekend and I'll see you Wednesday.